everybody. Welcome. Good to see you. Hello. We will give everyone a few minutes to get in here. We got a big crew as my cat decides to take the leap of, I don't know, to join his sister up there. They might fight. They've been at each other's throats today. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hi. Who's got a full body? Yes. Look at, oh my gosh. Oh, they're so beautiful. Oh my gosh. So nice. Tons of knitting. Tons of knitting. Well done, everybody. Well done. In case you missed it, I did upload the next portion of our worksheet into the workroom today. So if you didn't download that, slip over there into the support materials and grab that part 2 of the worksheet. That is what we're going to be looking at today. We are going to be talking about adding steek panels for the underarm, for the sleeve separation, and now is the time if you want to do a V-neck modification. We're going to be talking about doing a V-neck modification too. But if you are going to stick with the neckline in the pattern, or you want to do a crew neck, we will be talking about those things next week. All right, so this is just for V-neckers. Anybody going to join me in V-neck land? No, just me? Oh my God. Well, I will just talk to myself. Then I do it all the time anyway, so it'll be normal for me. But we'll get those underarm steek setups done today. And everybody can zoom right along with their yokes. Now I'm going to say yoke because Andrea Mowry uses the word yoke in the pattern. She's talking about this portion. We'll go with it. Who am I to argue? I don't know. I argue with her about everything else. This one I'm giving her. You gotta throw her some bones. I'm throwing her this bone. All right. So that is why we're using that language, because Andrea Mowry chose that language. All right. We're gonna be doing our back and front yoke sections. That is just going to be the color work that we're talking about today. And then next week, we are going to talk about crew necks. We're going to talk about short rows and the ribbing. We're going to do all of that next week. All right. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, there's a lot of knitting to do in 1 week. Yes, it is a lot of knitting to do in 1 week. And that is only because I'm going on vacation. So we're just going to get everything on recording. So if you don't quite knit all of that knitting this week, you're not quite ready for it by next week, it'll be there ready for you to dig into when you're ready for it. All right. So you don't have to wait for me to get back from vacation. All right. All right. So without further ado, let's dig into what's going on with this part 2 of the framed worksheet. All right. What's going on here is we want to resize, pick our own sleeve sizing. And the way we're going to do that is by, kind of figuring out how much hole we're going to leave when we knit up the yoke, and anticipating knitting that ribbing at the top of the shoulder as well. Okay. From there, we will have all of our stitch counts also figured out, so we know where to turn. Or we know where to put our steek panels. All right, depending on how brave you're going to be. If you want to steek along with me, we're going to be putting in steek panels. I've got my sweater right here in front of me. We're doing it. If you want to just go back and forth, which I also, for the record, think is very brave. Back and forth color work is very hard. I don't know if you noticed this, but just going in the round with this color work is kind of hard, right? Looking at the wrong side of it and carrying your floats on the wrong side of the work, that's really tough too. All right. So there's no gold star that you get for steeking. I actually think it's the easier way to go. All right, but we'll talk more about that in just a second. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to take a look at this worksheet part 2. All right, we're going to work on our stitch counts. Okay, now I, just for my own sanity, have pre-crunched some numbers and have filled in my front and back stitch count. That is, the way that I did that is I just took the number of stitches that I ended up casting on, which I didn't transfer over correctly. I had 234 stitches that I cast on. I divided that by 2 and got 117 stitches. So I know that I have 117 stitches on the front and 117 stitches on the back. And I actually went ahead in my work and pre-placed that second side marker, so I know where that is before I start knitting. All right. The other thing I did was, you might see this 58 down here. So far, nobody is joining me on this V-neck journey. But if you have your calculator out and you want to keep hitting divide by 2, you can hit that again, because we need to find the center stitch of our front. So you would take that front number and you would divide that by 2. And this number, even though we've got an odd number here, that center stitch is going to be our very bottom of that V-neck. So that is what I've transferred over here. All right, but let's talk a little bit more about this arm circumference for now. Okay, now when we're talking about this arm circumference, remember, we can make that anything we want to. Andrea Mowry is very famous for having very tiny sleeves, though in this pattern she has boosted up. She's overcorrected, I think. And so if you want to adjust the bicep circumference of the sleeve in some way, that is what we are doing right here. All right, we're used to adding inches to her sleeves. In this case, I'm going to take some away. Her sleeve circumference in this case is way too big. Okay, so we're going to start off with this arm circumference number. Okay, and I can just scroll up and grab that from my planning doc that we talked about a couple weeks ago. So I'm aiming for a 14-inch arm circumference. That is smaller than Andrea has decided for the size that I'm following, and I'm okay with that. So I've got 14 inches here. I'm going to divide that by 2 to start. All right, now that number is what I want my overall front and then back yoke depth to be. All right, because when I join at the shoulders, that's going to leave me 14 inches around to pick up. All right, so we're cutting that in half. What we also want to do is subtract the shoulder ribbing, okay? Because right now we want to plan how many color work rows we're going to get in this, all right? That's what we're focused on right now, is how many color work rows we want, okay? So we want to eliminate out that shoulder ribbing, and that is going to leave us with the number of inches we want in the color work up the sleeve. Okay, so for me and my desired sizing, I need 5.5 inches of color work to get myself up to where I'm going to start my ribbing. Okay, that's going to leave me with a really nice size sleeve, aligning with my ideas of how I want the sweater to be. All right. Now, if you are, I'm going to stop sharing right now. If you are going for a bigger sleeve, you know, that exaggerated balloon sleeve that Andrea Mowry's got in her sweater, then your number would be bigger because you want an overall bigger hole. All right. But if you're sizing that down, we're just going to subtract some inches from that overall circumference, and that's all it's going to take to get that sleeve to be smaller. Okay, now we're going to pick up a different number of stitches, of course, but we're going to worry about her later. All right, for now, we just have to think about that hole. All right, now we're going to talk about steek panels in just a second, but if you are knitting back and forth, you want to do that, in my case, 5.5 inches on the front and on the back. But if you're doing a steek panel, your steek panel is going to be 5.5 inches. because when you cut that open, that's going to leave that perfect circumference that you're looking for. Okay, so those are the numbers that we're looking for to get that armhole. All right, everybody good with that? Excellent, excellent. All right, so one thing that we want to think about here is our yoke pattern. Okay, so this might take a little bit of fiddling to get the pattern to end up in a place that's pleasing for the eye. Okay, so I'm going to take my inches, my yoke depth inches here, that's 5.5. I want to multiply that by my round gauge. Okay, now I'm getting 5.5 rounds per 1 inch. All right, and if I multiply those numbers together, that's going to give me my overall round yoke depth rounds. All right, and that is 30.25. Okay, now I need to do a little bit of calculation to figure out where this is going to leave me in the chart. Okay, so I made a note for myself up here that I am going to end on round 3 of the pattern. That was to give me to the body length that I wanted. Okay, now if I'm starting off on round 4 and I want to get about 30 more rows, what I can do is bring up our chart and see where that's going to leave me. Okay, so that is going to leave me, I'm starting off here with 4, that's 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's going to leave me ending up on row 8. I don't think that's very pleasing, is it, right? That's right in the middle of this diamond shape. I put in the worksheet that there were a couple of like nice options. I feel like one of them was 6, right? Because if we end up here finishing up this little shape here, that looks pretty nice. And I might just round my my goals down a smidge so that I can leave off like at least finishing one of these shapes and not leaving it off in the middle of one of these little, I don't know, triangle situations. So I'm going to say that my last row is going to be row 7 of the next chart because I feel like that would look a lot better ending up there. And I don't want to round to here and finish up a whole one because that would make my arm way too big. So I'm gonna end up here on row 7. So I think that sounds good. Now I'm going to go back over to my worksheet and I'm going to just make a note for myself because I can't do this math right now while I'm chit-chatting, and on row 7. All right, and we can do adjusted yoke depth rounds if you need to adjust your rounds to get yourself to a place that is pleasing to you. Okay, now it doesn't have to be, I feel like Andre Maury does a lot of rigmarole in this pattern, making sure that each size is a certain length and has a certain armhole opening where it ends on a perfect repeat every time. And I think based on all of the sweaters that are popping up, some sizes have really small bodies, some sizes have even bigger arms to get those row gauges to work out. And if your row gauge is off by a little bit, it kind of distorts the whole shape of the sweater, which is why we're kind of doing it like this. All right. That being said, if it's really going to bother you to end a shape in the middle of a set, you know, not finishing off one of those squares, well, then adjusting at this point is a great idea, right? If you're kind of calculating it and you're like, okay, I'm going to end up on row 7, but I really want to end up actually on I'm just going to pull this up, on working a row 13. If I make my body longer, if I make my body 7 rows longer, that's going to bump everything up a little bit. And I would like that a lot better, right? So you can kind of give or take a little bit from the body based on where we are right now in the knitting, right? You've got to this point, you can kind of look ahead. We've got all these calculations and we can, adjust to where you think your sweater is going to look the best. All right. Doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what you think. So at this point, you can kind of map it out for yourself and make that look the way that you want it to look. All right. Without having to, borrow against, oh, okay, my sleeve's just going to be a lot bigger, or, oh, my sweater's just going to be a lot shorter, right? We'll do the planning now to make sure that comes through. All right. So that being said, how are we doing? This making sense? Great. Awesome. I see people calculating, maybe doing some coloring. I always have trouble when I'm like, okay, if I'm on row 24 of the chart and I have 10 rows, where does that leave me? I always have to count. I don't know why I can't figure that out. I'm very visual. But yeah, so if you have to like kind of count, maybe block off, what was helping me too is taking an extra sheet of paper and like sectioning off parts of the chart. Like, will this look nice if it ends here? Or folding your paper in half. Like, will this be a nice way for my sweater to end? You could do those things too. But really, whatever you want your sweater to be, this is the time to plan it and make adjustments. All right. All right. Does anybody have any questions about what's going on with their sweater?
I do. It's Carol. Yeah.
Oh, Carol.
Oh,
sorry. I saw Amy waving at me.
Okay. So I have a question. On the last part that we did, I did the body pattern. I did 2 repeats of the chart. When we ended up on our ending of pattern round, I said what I was going to do was 58 rounds. So that was only 52. So that means I need to do another 6 rows just for that part, correct?
Sounds like it.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was so far ahead of myself and I put it away for like a week and a half. And I just looked at it tonight. I'm like, what? I didn't do those rows. What is wrong
Oh
with
my
me?
gosh. Funny.
I know.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're so close, Carol. Yeah, you're so
Okay.
close.
Okay. All right. And then, so if I had 312 stitches, I divide that by 2, I get 156. My arm before was 17.5. So divide that by 2 and then subtract 1.5 inches. And that should be my new measurement. Okay. All right. I think I got it. I'm
Nice.
not sure about sneaking, but I'll give it a shot.
Nice, Carol. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Amy and then I see Diana. Amy.
So, this might be a really dumb question, but transitioning from the body to the yoke and, figuring about maybe giving one a little more room than the other to end in is the knit in the round chart the same as the front yoke chart? I get that the back is different if you're going to be doing back and forth, but before I did something and was counting on something and then that wasn't what it was. They look to be the same to me, but I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure.
They are the same. The difference is, as in the written pattern, Andrea Maury is having you cast on a couple of stitches, as like essentially salvage stitches, to set you up for going back and forth. So that's what you're seeing. And I'll share my screen so we can really look at this together. So this is the in the round pattern that we've been looking at. If we scroll to the front yoke chart, this repeat is exactly the same. We've just got a couple stitches on both sides that are going to essentially be salvage stitches that she's adding.
Is she only adding those on like the ends, or is she adding those every time?
On the ends, you can see this pattern repeat here, this red. Yeah, so she's even got a SS salvage stitch. That's what's going on down here. Yeah, but that chart is just a smaller version, like actually visually smaller than this nice bigger chart up here. So it is exactly the same.
Okay, Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Diana. Oh, you're muted, Diana.
Sorry about that. Okay, I have a couple questions. Number one is, can you steak if you've used Spin Cycle Superwash yarn? And number
Yes.
two is, if I chicken out, which cannot be ruled out, particularly since I'm working on that other sweater as well. How do you think it would look if you just converted completely to your ribbing color in stockinette stitch going all the way up?
So just like at the underarm, just
Yeah.
changing up. It might just be kind of an awkward placement at the armhole as far as your bust line goes. I would say you want to take it up, maybe up just a tiny bit, just to get it off the like fullest part of your bust. Depending on where that armhole is, that might look a little bit awkward place for a line. So you could maybe do either back and forth color work, just like finishing off your repeat, or maybe doing half another black or something just to get it up a little bit and then switching to your main color. I don't think that would look weird at all.
Because I'm thinking it would be a whole heck of a lot easier.
7:51 p.m.
And I love, love, love my main color much more than I thought I would. So,
Hey, that's a good thing. Yeah.
can I do it lower? Because I usually have my sweaters 15 to 16 inches, below my armpit. I'm not into cropping at all. I'm not of that generation. So is it possible, how much lower do I have to be? I'm only at 13 inches now, so I have 2 to 3 inches to go before I do anything.
Yeah, I would just give it a block, Diana, and take a look at what it looks like on your body, throw yourself into it and see what it looks like. See if you like it. If you like it, I say go for it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I've got a ways to go before I even get to the sneaking idea.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever you're up for. You've got a lot. You put your time in. If you want to bail, nobody will blame you.
Yeah, I was thinking I may want to veil, just otherwise I won't keep up with both classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, because I have 13 inches already.
That's amazing. That's so much.
I
Yeah.
know it's a lot. All right.
Well, I'm excited to see what you decide to do. I think it's going to be beautiful regardless.
I do too. I can't get over how much I love this pattern.
Yay. Oh, good. That's a good feeling. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, let's go to Burns.
Oh, good. I unmuted. Hey, Allison. So I have two quick questions. So the first
Yeah.
question, and I guess I'll pose this for everyone in the group. How much ease are we putting for the arms? 2 inches of ease for your bicep, 3 inches? Like what are people aiming for? And then the other question I have, Allison, for you is I'm curious about the V-neck. So you would still do part of the ribbing, but the bottom would be V-neck. I'm trying to visualize it to see if that's something that I might want to pursue, and I gotta think about. I just can't visually see it yet.
Yeah, I totally get it. All right, let's start with your ease in the sleeve question. If you know how much ease you're putting in your sleeve, why don't you drop it in the chat? Whenever I say that, I sound like I'm one of those ridiculous people who's doing lives all the time. Just drop it in the chat. Give me a heart of pumped up emoji. Yes. And Burns, at least 2 inches of positive ease in the sleeve, just because of how thick the color work is going to be. All right. And I feel like with the V-neck, the way that it's going to look, it's going to be really similar to the understated sweater by Joji Locatelli. And just with so the V, because that has ribbing on the sleeves too, the V-neck is going to cut down into the color work in this case. So I think it's going to be really cute.
Thanks, Allison.
You're welcome. I want someone to do this with me. I think I got Katie Hochshed. She's not here, but I think I convinced her to do the V-neck with me. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Jerry.
Yeah, I'm double thinking the 2 inches because I'm using a DK weight, so it's not as thick because you guys are most people are using worsted, I think. So as I'm feeling it, it doesn't feel quite as, but I'm wondering if 2 is going to be too little and feel.
So you're thinking about going with more?
Yeah, I don't want it to be too big, but I have a problem
You
where
don't
I'm,
have to do 2. I was just saying I was doing 2. You could do anything.
well, that's what I was figuring too. But now the more I'm thinking about it, because when I make a sweater, so my shoulders are really narrow. So my bust is not in proportion to my shoulders. So I always, unless I do a class with you, everything I make, it ends up being too, well, this is just a sweatshirt, but too much here, always, unless I take a class with you. So I just don't want to have, I don't want to have that pit sink in this thing,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't want it to be out of proportion with it being 2 inches because my overall is 45. So that gives me 7 inches of ease, 7.5 inches of ease on my bust. So I just don't want these to be too narrow.
Yeah. So maybe you'd be more comfortable with 3?
3,
just in case?
maybe.
Yeah. Give yourself a little bit more room.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only 1 repeat in, so I've got a way to go, but
So you can consider it. You can consider it.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Everyone feeling okay about this? Yeah. All right. So those of you who are doing the back and forth, who's not steeking? Couple people. Oh, don't know. Diana's on the fence. All right. So Amy and I were just chit-chatting a little bit about selvage stitches. All right. So Andre Mowry in this pattern has you casting on at the sleeve separation. So those stitches are important because when you go back in and pick up stitches, those stitches are going to be the stitches that you pick up. So they're like extra bonus stitches that are just going to help your sleeves stay really sturdy when you pick up the stitches. All right. So those are important. So what you can do is we all had to pick a size when we cast on so that we could work within the rules of this repeat. So you can find that size and have Andre Mowry just kind of walk you through that process. But all she's doing is giving you 2 extra stitches on both sides when you're ready to separate for the sleeves. All right. Now, why she has those stitches in color work, I'm not exactly sure. If I was doing it, I would just put them in my main color and call it a day. Maybe I just don't think that there's any reason to put them in color work. Amy's already just like, I'm not doing that. Yeah, so you can just have them in your main color. They're going to be inside your sweater anyway. You're going back and forth. You can just leave them in your main color and call it a day and go back and forth with the rows indicated. All right, that is all you have to do. All right. If you're making a steek panel, the steek panel becomes your selvage stitches. All right, we're going to be casting on 5 stitches for our steek panel. The middle stitch that we are going to be casting on is our cut line. We're going to be enforcing our steek on the stitches next to it. And that leaves us stitch 1 and stitch 5 are going to be our selvage stitches, like our picked up stitches when we're picking up for the armhole. All right, so our steek panel takes care of that. It's kind of nice because then we can just stay in pattern exactly. We don't have to add any additional stitches. We've got our pattern established. We can just keep going as we read it that way. All right. Everything else is just kind of be taken up by those steek panels. All right. So if everybody's cool with that, I can pull up my hand cam and we can get some steek panels going on in here. We ready for this? Oh, I wanted to say one more thing about underarm stitches. All right. In very typical weekender adjacent fashion, Andrea Mowry doesn't have us pull off any underarm stitches. Okay. She didn't do it for the weekender. She didn't do it for the weekender crew, weekender light, any of these. She never has us take off any underarm stitches. The reason being is she has a lot of ease that she has in this. And when you're thinking about, the reason for pulling off those stitches, the farther that, that fabric gets away from your armpit, the more it can just be fabric that comes to a point. Okay. If you have sized down a substantial amount, by substantial, I mean you have like 4 inches of positive ease in the body of the sweater, it would probably be a good idea to take off a few stitches for your underarms just so that shape can be more closely aligned with the shape of your body. All right. Is that anybody only doing like 4 inches of positive ease? Yeah, Jody. So Jody, yeah, think that through. I feel like the sweater might help. The shape of it might be a little bit better.
Well, I kind of went ahead. Sorry. And so I kind of was following what we learned in Paul McCartney.
Oh, so you did pull off sleeves?
Oh
underarm
yeah,
stitches?
yeah,
Oh,
I did, but I didn't pull off a
great.
few. Well, I mean, so based on my gauge, I'm knitting the smallest size because my
Okay.
gauge is, and so I pulled off. I made it easy on myself so I could follow the pattern.
That's
I pulled
exactly
off
what I was gonna say.
I pulled off 13 stitches under
That's
each
exactly
arm.
what I was gonna say. Yeah,
Okay, because
exactly.
because I looked at it like originally based on my gauge, it was supposed to be 12, and I was like, screw that, I'm not having like this one extra weird stitch, and it just took me a couple rounds because you pull them off, and then when you get to the
Yes.
back, you're on a different part of the
it's
you're off. So, but yeah, so I just pulled and I just used all my math. I used all my math I learned. So I'm so proud of
Got
myself.
it. Yes, I'm proud of you too. You did
Thanks.
exactly what I was going to tell you to do. So
Okay,
aligned.
awesome.
Yes, perfect.
Yay. Okay. All right, good. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Vicky is saying that she's probably going to pull off stitches too. Now, what Jody is saying that, and if you're used to following this pattern, that 13 number might be kicking in a little bit because we've got 13 stitches across one of these little squares, right? So pulling off an entire little square helps the rest of the sweater stay in pattern and helps you kind of visualize where that is. So yeah, that's why, Jody, I said pull off a couple of stitches, pull off a small amount of stitches, because I didn't want people to get in trouble with having to read this pattern, and it would be really challenging if you were like in the middle of one
Okay,
of the
good.
repeats.
I was worried when you meant small. I was like, is she talking like 2 or 3? Because I went
no,
I went whole hog.
No. I was gonna say 13, or I was gonna say maybe even 7, because you could kind of angle a little bit where like one of those, like half of the square could come off, if that makes more sense for your gauge or whatever. But yeah, like reading your knitting and deciding from there, pulling off some underarm stitches is exactly what I was gonna suggest. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I feel at ease now.
Yeah, no kidding. Were you just shitting your pants a little bit, Jody? Sorry about
Well,
that.
I've got like a whole inch like done now, and I did a 7. I did a 7
Okay.
steek panel. I know I didn't need to do 7, but I just was like, it was kind of just made it feel like a better base for me. I don't know. But anyways, but
Huh.
I was like an inch in and I thought, oh, I better go to class before I get too far. And then she tells me I did something wrong. So yeah. Okay, I'll roll
I
along
love
now.
that. Yeah, nice. I love that. You were so brave to a point.
Yeah.
You're like, oh
Just
shit.
a little,
I'm not,
just a little bit.
yeah, I'm not gonna get the stern face on Monday night. It's not happening.
Exactly.
But no, you did the exact right thing, Jody. I love it. You're doing great. Can't
Okay,
wait to see
great.
it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, circling back to Vicky. Vicky, you feel good about that? That making sense to you?
Yeah, I think so. So I'll want to know where the middle of my stitches are so I can like take the underarm stitches from either side of that, right? And then around the
Yeah,
beginning
yeah,
of round.
and I think once you get there, Vicky, it's going to make more sense too, because then you can kind of see where the pattern is lining up. And if
Yeah.
you need to take off the next, like if your beginning around is here and you take off the next 13 stitches, because that's a full square of the
Yeah.
repeat, you know, then you can count from there. Oh, where's the other side of my armpit? Where are those 13 stitches lining up? So then you'll have the repeat lining up better.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
All right. Jody, maybe you could take a picture of your sweater and post it in the workroom when you get a chance. Just so maybe Vicky could take a look at what your armpit looks like. Oh, you're muted, Jody.
Okay, sorry. So one thing I did do was I figured, so in order to figure out that where my arms were, my underarm stitches were coming off, is I actually took that number. So I took 13 and 13 for each side. I subtracted that from my numbers. So then my beginning of round, I took off 13 stitches, and then I knew I only needed like 79 stitches. And then so I figured out what that number was. If you're going to go with the full 13 stitches, or say you do half of that, I just subtracted that from my front and back, so that, I was working with that number versus the full number of stitches. Did that make sense?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vicky also is a graduate of the Paul McCartney sweater class, right, Vicky?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Proud graduate.
She's proud graduate. Yes. Badge earning Paul McCartney sweater. So this might be a little bit familiar, right, Vicky?
It's familiar, but every time I think something's familiar in knitting and I like go confidently forward, I find out I did something really awful wrong.
It does kind of kick you in the face a couple times, right? Yeah. But yeah, Jody, if you could just take a picture and post it in the workroom, we would love to see that. And then Vicky can get a visual as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks, Jody. All right. So for those of us that leaned into that nice ease, we don't really have to worry about that. And we can just get our steek panel cast on. Okay. So let me get myself set up here. Get an extra light on. All right. So what I have in front of me here is I have worked my way to my beginning of round. And I am going to, right at this beginning of round marker, this is my underarm. I am going to add my steek panel right here. Okay. So beginning of round marker. And every row we're using our 2 colors. So I am going to start off by doing a backwards loop cast on with my background color. And then I'm going to alternate this backwards loop cast on nice and loosely, getting 5 stitches cast on my needle. All right. So I am setting myself up here to continue knitting these steek panels in the stripe pattern. Okay, every time I come to my little steek panel here, I'm going to knit the first stitch in my background color. I'm going to knit the second stitch in my yellow, my contrasting color, and I'm just going to knit them as I see them. That is going to help me when I'm going in to reinforce these stitches and to cut open my steek, because I'll be able to follow these lines in my steek panel. All right, so I love a nice striped steek panel. Okay, then I'm going to place another marker, and that is just helping me isolate my steek stitches so I know that they are not part of the rest of my sweater. Now, I also want to make sure that because I'm adding more stitch markers on the other side of my pattern, I want to make sure that the real beginning of round marker is unique. So I'm going to take my gold medal #1 stitch marker, and I'm going to put it on my little marker here so I know that this is my beginning of round. All right, so make sure that when you are working your, when you get that other armpit in, that you make sure that your beginning of round marker is unique. Okay, now where I ended up in my pattern, I need to work row 4 of my pattern, which is the long float pattern. So as I work across my stitches here, I am going to be catching my floats. All right, there was a little bit of talk in the workroom about catching floats. I thought maybe that would be a nice place to start off. So we can just kind of take a look at what that looks like again. So I can't remember who was chit-chatting about this in the workroom, but I'm giving my floats a catch right at the center of each of these little squares. So I go ahead and I catch my float and I keep moving along. And that they're long floats. I usually don't like to go above 5 stitches, but rules for everything. All right. So, and then on the back, we're looking like this. All right. That's where my long float is. That's where it's getting caught. All right. Now I have, let me readjust this. I have, just like I mentioned, I have pre-marked the center of my front. All right. And that just happens to be in the center of one of these blocks. And I think when I put in my V-neck steek panel, that's going to look really good lining up this way. All right. Now, depending on what size you followed, you will either be right in the middle of one of these blocks, or you'll be right between one of these blocks. And I think we were talking about this a little bit. Katie Hackshed was asking questions about this too. You might, if you are not liking where it is, if you're doing the V-neck and you're not liking where it is in the center of your front, you can always adjust where your beginning of round marker is to move that center stitch. If you're living in, maybe I'm putting in a V-neck. I'm going to convince a few more of you that this is the way to go. I just know it. Pam, maybe? Yes? I love it. I love it. All right. So that is how you get a steek panel in. It's pretty easy, right? I'm going to knit my way a little bit toward the V-neck marker so I can demonstrate how to get the V-neck steek panel in too. And while I am knitting away here, does anybody have any questions about steek panels or turning their work or anything going on with their sleeves or setting up for the sleeve? Oh, Vicki.
I actually have a question that kind of goes back to the ease question. So
Yeah.
the sweater body that I'm knitting is not going to have a ton of ease, but my sleeves are going to be big and poofy like Andrea Mowry wants them to be, I guess.
Yeah.
So in that case, do you think that because the body is going to be kind of close fitting, I should add the underarm stitches, or will the big poofy sleeve kind of take care of it?
It's all about the body sizing, actually. Because you're going to be close to that flat part of your body, that those underarm stitches are going to be, pulling if you don't have that flat edge. So I do feel like just in the body, you may be happier with pulling off some of those stitches for the underarm.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. I just wanted to check.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe I don't have to
absolutely.
do extra math, but no, I have to do extra math.
Sorry. Sorry, Vicky.
I have a question again.
Yeah, Carol.
So, yeah, I'm a little confused. So you add your steek panel and then you continue knitting and you keep talking about working back and forth. If you're adding a steek panel, aren't we still knitting in the round?
Yes, there's two options, which is why
Okay,
I
so
keep
the
talking to the steek panel people or the people who are
okay,
deciding not to do the steek panel.
okay. So if they're following the pattern verbatim, then they're doing the back and forth. Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
exactly. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so I worked my way to the middle of the front of my sweater, just for kicks, maybe for Pam. Definitely for Katie, who's not here. I'm going to talk about putting in a V-neck steek panel as well. All right. So here is my very, very center stitch. Now I have put a marker on the center stitch and I'm going to let it hang in the front of my work. I'm taking that off my needle and that is now no longer part of my journey. It is now going to hang in front. I'm leaving it alone. And I'm going to take out 2 more markers because I'm doing the same process that I did before, putting in a steek panel. So I'm going to bring in my background color, my contrasting color. Oops, except I forgot to place my marker. Place your marker and then do your cast on. 5 stitches, just like we did before. Place your other marker. And that is your V-neck steek panel. All right. This one little stitch is eventually going to be part of the V-neck, going to be the bottom of that V. All right. Now I'm going to come back in pattern, which at this point gets a little bit tricky because things for a while feel a little bit pulled, but you'll pick up right where you left off. Finish up that little square in pattern.
So you're ignoring the salvage stitches, right? When you
In
do
the
that?
steek panel, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
All right, and now I'm going to continue working in my pattern until I get over to my other armpit stitches. And remember, I went ahead and pre-counted over to find where my other armpit goes to make sure that I counted correctly. I'm a terrible counter. This is what I always do when I'm placing markers before I start knitting. Knitting and counting, very hard. Just counting, hard enough. All right, so I pre-count, I place a marker, then I double check my counting as I'm going to, because the last thing we want to do, especially since I'm putting in a V-neck, I do not want my V-neck here. I don't want my V-neck here. I want my V-neck right here. So I need to have the right number of stitches. All right, Jody.
Okay, so I just looked up the understated because I kind of wanted a visual. I forget who else was talking about. I needed the visual. So I think I might consider the V-neck, but I'm not going backwards. So I'm already an inch up. So I won't be, and I think I did this on my Paul McCartney too. I didn't do quite as deep of a V. Is that going to be an issue if I start it now? Okay.
No.
And then my
Right.
other question for
Especially
you.
since Jody, we need to be hashtag influencers. So
Oh,
right? We got to do
yes,
this.
yes, that's exactly what I need to be. Add that to my CV.
But yeah, I'm putting mine in at the same level as my armpit. But yeah, if you want a shallower V-neck, you can definitely knit a little bit and then put the V-neck in later.
Okay, and then my other question is when I took it the halfway point, I get 39 and a half.
That's perfect because you can have 39 stitches on one side and 39 stitches on the other side, and that extra stitch is the center stitch.
And that sets me actually up perfectly. So I don't
Yes.
have to change anything because I'm not going backwards.
Not going
So,
backwards, only forward.
okay,
I like
awesome. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Burns.
Allison, for the V-neck, I'm really considering it. When you drop that stitch that you marked halfway in the front, right? So when you're continuing on, you just kind of forget that stitch in the pattern because you added just the steep panel. Okay.
Exactly you do. And it does make it a little bit challenging, but if it makes you feel any better, it's going to get even more challenging because you need to put in decreases. So you're going to be decreasing into the pattern. Does that make you feel better? Yeah, of course it does.
I'm always up for a challenge. So between speaking and then thinking about this V-neck, I think it'll be good. You'll learn a lot. See, that's how
You'll learn a lot. Yep, exactly. You'll learn a lot. All right. So I am just knitting away over here. You know, I'm like a duck in water right now. Getting over to the other side of my sweater so I can demonstrate one more time how to put that steep panel in. And then I am going to be talking a little bit more about the V-neck math because we have to decrease out stitches to get a V-neck. If we just put in the steep panel, that will just be a slit. We need to decrease neckline stitches out so that when we cut open our steek, it falls open into a V. And that just takes a tiny bit of extra calculation, which I'm going to talk about. All right. That does mean that if you have zero interest in what is happening with V-neck shaping, you can just salute and wave and leave this Zoom, and I do not have to hold you captive. All right. But if you're interested or if you have any other questions, feel free to hang out. If your family is happily leaving you alone right now because you're on Zoom, then you can definitely use me as an excuse to stay with your family. It happens all the time. All right. People are already blowing me kisses. I love getting kisses blown to me. I used to make people sexy wink at me when they were leaving class. But Shane's in human resources, and he told me that I should stop doing that. He also told me I should stop saying fuck, but he can only win once, right? So I gave him the sexy wink. All right, so I've made my way over to the other steek panel. So I am going to give this another little demo. All right, spotlight here. All right, so here's my other side marker. All right, I'm going to slide that over to my right needle. That can be my steek panel needle. I'm going to bring over just the exact same way that we've been doing this all along. 5 alternating backwards loop cast-ons to get me from my first marker here to my second marker. And then I can pick right up in pattern right here and be on the back of my sweater. All right, so every time I come to one of my little steek panels, and it does feel tight until you get off that little area, all right, you will follow this in pattern, striping it across, all right? Sometimes with steek panels, you see checkerboard. Stripes, I feel like, is just easier to secure, All right, you can cut the middle open, you can follow that line, you can follow those reinforcement lines. It just makes it a little bit easier. Okay. All right, so V-neck. V-necks. Now you'll notice in the worksheet, I do have a little area at the bottom that is dedicated to shaping the V-neck. All right. Now, when you shape a V-neck, if you've never done this before, it feels so weird while you're doing it. And I dedicate a majority of my Paul McCartney sweater workroom to just talking people down from being like, I have screwed this up. What am I knitting? And I say, you're doing great. And they're like, no, I'm not. And I say, yes, you are. And just cut it. And they're like, you're fucking crazy. And I say, just cut it. And then they cut it. And they're like, oh, it's perfect. I'm like, I told you it's perfect. All right. So it's going to feel really awkward because if you think about you put in that steep panel right here. All right, we need to open up these stitches by putting in decreases to allow for our back neck width stitches. Okay. Now, however wide you want your head hole to be essentially is how many stitches we need to decrease out of this V-neck. All right. So one of the things that I really like is kind of a tighter fitting width. A pet peeve of mine is like battling my sweaters, like if they're like shuffling on my shoulders. I hate that. So I like to keep kind of a tight back neck width. So when I'm figuring this out, when I'm picking up my back neck width, I really just measure from where my neck hits my shoulder on both sides and measure that across. And that's about 6.5 inches for me. And that's pretty good. All right. Now, if you like a little bit wider, if you want kind of a bigger opening, love that. You would just pick a larger back neck width. You would just have more stitches that you want to decrease out. All right. That's all that is. So having said that, I'm going to share my screen and take a look at this worksheet and just kind of talk us through. All right. So here is my worksheet. All right. And adding a V-neck question mark. Well, we can delete that question mark because I'm adding a V-neck. All right. So I have placed my marker. I had 58 stitches on both sides of that marker to start. So I've put that V-neck panel in. I've got everything set up. And now I want to calculate how many stitches I need to decrease out. So like I said, I like a back neck width of 6.5 inches. I want to multiply that by my stitch gauge. I'm just going to scroll up and remind myself I'm at about a 5.25 stitches per 1 inch. All right, so 6.5 times 5.25, that is about 34 stitches. All right, 34 stitches. That is great because it is an even number. And so I can really work with that. All right, I made a note here. We want it to be an even number because you want to take the same amount of stitches out of both sides. All right, so I'm going to take my back neck width stitch count and it equals my V-neck stitches to decrease. I need that many stitches out, 34 total stitches. But if we're looking at creating a decrease row, I want to decrease evenly 1 stitch on one side of my V-neck and 1 stitch on the other side of my V-neck. So I'm going to take 34 stitches. I'm going to divide that by 2. And that is going to give me the number of decrease rounds I want to do. That is 17. So I want 17 total decrease rounds in. That's going to remove the correct number of stitches for me. All right. Now I'm going to take my yoke depth rounds. For me, that's about 30. I have to go back to this. It's 30 or 31-ish. All right. And I can divide that by how many decrease rounds I need. And that's going to give me how many rounds between decrease rounds. Now, because we have such a big round gauge, it could be easier just to be like, okay, 17. I know what 17 times 2 is because I've already got this. I'm going to just decrease every other row until I have the right number of stitches, right? Because that's easy. That's easy math, right? So I know that this is going to be a 1 because every other row I'm going to do a decrease row, and that's going to give me, after 34 rows, I'm going to have removed 34 stitches. All right. Now, if you have a little bit of a weirder number, you might have to cram some more in. Like Jody maybe is doing her math right now. And because the bottom of her V-neck is a little bit higher, she might need to really cram those in and not have a plain knit round between decreases because she has a smaller amount of length to decrease out those stitches. However you need to get this done is the way it doesn't have to be even. Like with a Paul McCartney sweater, a lot of times I'm going to stop sharing. Then we'll come back to this. All right. With the Paul McCartney sweater, sometimes you have to like decrease out it's like 2 decreases and then an even row, 2 decreases and then an even row. So however it works, and you can go on Vibes, you can place markers for your decreases. You just need to decrease out as this number of stitches you need out, right? As soon as I have decreased out 34 stitches, I'm done. And that's going to be relatively close to where I'm switching to the V-neck. I'm sorry, switching to the ribbing. All right. So that's when things get a little bit playful. All right. I wanted to check in with Jody. Jody, no, don't want to pressure you if you're waiting to do this math later, but were you able to kind of see set yourself up with your V-neck?
Yeah, I think so. So if I just take your 6.5, I don't remember what I did for Paul McCartney. I'd have to look, and I'm just going to trust you with 6.5 because I don't want to.
That sounds
good. Okay. I've got 4 stitches per inch. So that gives me 26 for my stitches for my back width stitch count.
Yeah.
And then if I divide that by 2, I get 13. Now I just counted how many rows I did, which it's about 5. So now, and I had 25 yoke depth rounds. So if I take 20 divided by 13, I get like 1.5. So I'll just
go on Vibes.
Yeah, I think probably what I'll do is I'll do a couple back to back right at the start, and then maybe every other or whatever. I'll yeah, I'm not too worried. Having done this before, like if you haven't done this before, I know how you feel right now. Anybody else who's like right here, it does feel super weird, and you're going to be like, this makes no sense. But just trust the process. Just trust the process. It does turn out.
It is
but
pretty
you do,
bananas.
But you do kind of have to keep track of it. Like however you do, like piece of paper or whatever. It does, but it does work out. It totally works out.
And I will say too, Jody's not worried about it too, and you shouldn't be worried about it either, because we've got we have our yoke depth rows, but we also have even more buffer up here that we're going to be putting in with the ribbing, right? So that can be a buffer zone as well. If you need to decrease stitches into that ribbing, that's okay. And if you think about the shape of where you want your sweater to be, the angle is kind of front loaded. And then once you get to the neckline, it goes straighter. So that's why we're kind of thinking about front loading those decreases. Once we pick up stitches and do ribbing, that's going to all smooth out anyway. All right. So yeah, Jody's exactly right. Kind of go on Vibe. She's not worried about it. You shouldn't be worried about it either. All right. Jerry.
I was trying to work some numbers there, so I might have missed this when you said it, but you're doing the V. So you're starting here, you're doing the V, and then are you coming up here and attaching it to that shoulder, or is it strictly a V? Is it strictly a V going up into ribbing around the neck? Because the shoulder has the ribbing, right? So is your V coming like this,
the ribbing,
and then blending right into the ribbing?
You're making like this kind of a shape. The ribbing's gonna still exist. The V neck is just gonna also exist.
Okay, I just can't, I can't envision that with this patterning and that across the shoulder.
Maybe Jody, did you have
Ribbing.
something that you wanted to say? Oh, you're
Yeah,
muted.
something about that I just can't.
So maybe this will help, is that I'm going to decrease all of my stitches in my pattern section, like in where the pattern is, then that ribbing is happening after. Is that what you're having
And then
confusion?
the seam is here. The seam is in the same spot.
I thought the ribbing
It's not
sat down a little
attached.
bit.
Yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
the
it will
ribbing
be.
does set down. Yes,
Yeah,
and then the
but
seam is
I'm
here.
but I'll be decreasing all of my stitches in that quilt pattern section.
Like here,
And
just this much of it.
Yeah, from like, okay, so mine's probably going to be about here. So I'm going to decrease whatever this is, like for 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches, like my V-neck is actually going to come probably to about
Same.
here. Yeah.
Mine
So
too.
all of my decreases will happen in my color work. And then this will be unaffected by those decreases because you're then just,
I think
you're
that's
just
a nice
knitting.
word. Yeah, that's a nice word that Jody used too. The ribbing is unaffected by the V-neck. It'd be like if you took the schematic of this sweater and just drew a V on it. That's what it's going to look like.
And whoever said to, when you said to look at the understated, I pulled that up. That helped me visualize what was happening so much better because I wasn't able to visualize that and I wasn't going to do the V-neck. But now but go look at the project pages because Hobie does it in black. It's kind of hard to see.
And you can't see it.
You can't see.
I'll
So
pull it up here too so we can.
Okay, I was envisioning having to do, you know, like your traditional ribbing where you rib around a neckline, but that's not the case. This is going to.
Yeah, you'll still have to do that.
Oh, you'll still. It's just, I can't, I mean, I see it more, but I can't quite see it. Maybe I need like a glass of wine or something. I know.
So here's the project. So here's where the ribbing is, and here's where the V-neck is. So if this whole section here was quilted, the quilt pattern, that would be what it would look like.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm still working on my understated, so it's not done. That's why I don't. I can't rep. Okay, I get it from both of you now. Okay, I think I get it.
Good.
It's tempting. It's tempting.
All right, let's go over to Burns. Burns, how about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm leaning to this V-neck because I'm wondering how deep is the V gonna be on me because I've never done a V-neck sweater before. So I don't know if I want it a little bit. Well, I'm kind of wearing like a V-neck sort of shirt right now. So I like where this is.
If you took a tape measure, Burns, and you pulled across just to visualize from where your underarms are going to be across your body.
Yep.
This is where the bottom of my V-neck is going to be.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yep. No, that helps. So I'm there for me. That's a little bit low on the V-neck for me. I might be like Jody and maybe knit a little bit more before.
Yeah. And Burns, I think too, that's where we're going to be picking up stitches and knitting our ribbing from too. That's going to bring it up.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. That's just the very bottom of this fabric.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to bring that up with the ribbing.
Great. Thanks.
All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Jerry.
All right, I have one more question on the V-neck. So when you do a V like that, because I've done one sweater like that before in one of your classes, so it pulls it up. And I remember we did the ribbing around the V before we finished the rest of the sweater, just to see if our sleeves and all, because it was one, I forget which one we were doing. We were all worried it was going to be too low. Maybe the cozy.
Maybe it was understated.
maybe I did that part of it. I can't remember now. I know it's not totally finished, but and I remember thinking you kept saying, well, you'll just add an extra row or two if you want to pull it in and pull it up. And it shockingly works because I'm working on a sweater right now. And I did that before the sleeves because I felt like everything was just too open. And I just added an extra row or two. So is that the case? Will we be doing that before we finish the rest of it?
You can't
No.
do the V-neck before you
can't.
finish the shoulders, but you
Okay.
can do the V-neck before you go to the sleeves because we need
Okay.
to seam the shoulders together, and that because that's where we're going to be picking up the stitches.
Right, because we're picking it up and then doing them in the round. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Pam.
Not exactly a question, but a comment. Now that everybody's talking about understated, I'm thinking, dang, I wish we had just made this top down like understated because I've done this. I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you would have been going back and forth on that color work in the front
Well, that's
and the
true.
back.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Yeah.
But your understated looks great, Pam.
Yeah, it's all ready for sleeve timber. Just
Sleeve
need some sleeves and I'm
I
good.
was just
Yeah.
gonna say, yay! Oh my god,
I
I
even
love
knew
it.
where it was. Yeah. So
You're ready. You're ready.
I'm ready.
September 1st.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Katie, I've been talking about you.
Uh-oh. I didn't feel my ears ringing, so maybe it wasn't too bad.
No, I was saying when I first said we're going to be talking about V-neck, putting it in a V-neck steek panel, it was crickets, tumbleweeds. And I was like, well, Katie Hochsted's not here. I'm going to talk about it anyway. And then I grabbed more people. So
Had
we
to
have
go
a
play
crew
my thing.
now. Yes. So we have a crew now, Katie.
Oh, excellent. I'm very excited.
Yeah, me
So
too.
when I realized I didn't go back and get the printed material. So I wanted to make sure I had it ready when you're ready.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm on board.
Nice. Excellent. Katie, did you do the conversion incorrectly of the time? We've been on class for over an hour.
Really? It said 7:30 to 9, which is 8:30 to 10 my time.
It auto changes from the party to Eastern time.
Okay. Well, guess what? That's good. Then I'll make dinner and I'll come back and watch the thing.
Exactly. And you'll see when everyone was like, no, I don't want to do it. And I'll be like, well, I'm going to talk about it for Katie and we're doing it together.
Oh,
You'll
dang,
see it,
I'm
Katie.
sorry. You know what? I was
Don't
at
be.
7:30 and my thing rang at 7:30 and I'm like, no, it says in the Laura Allison party 7:30 to 9. So I'm going to go 8:30 to 10.
I know it changes. It tries to help. This happens all the time though. It tries to help you and it helps too much. It's like Big Brother.
Okay, well, it didn't work yesterday, so whatever was on yesterday. Of course, it was on my phone and we were driving, so who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. It has no idea where I am.
Nope. Well, Katie, when you dig into the recording, let me know if you have any questions or anything.
Okay,
All right?
and it looks like the spreadsheet's going to be really helpful, or the worksheet. So
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's setting people up for success. But give it a watch. I'll get it up tonight, so you can dig into it after dinner. I know how excited you were.
Yes.
So you'll be able to dig in, and then you can keep me posted. Okay.
Yeah. Just one quick question. So are we steeking the V and the things? Okay. I've never steeked the V, so that should be fun.
You're going to love it. I mean, you're going to think it's wrong, but then you're going to cut it open and you're going to be like, oh shit, this is magic.
Excellent.
Yes. Yes.
You can
it's gonna
always
be
cut
great.
it back, right? And start again, you know?
Yeah, cut it off,
I
yeah.
think I should put a lifeline in down to the, from to the
Oh,
body,
that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good
you
idea.
know? So
Yeah.
maybe I'll do that, but ready to go. It's been way more fun than I thought. So this is
I
good.
really loved this pattern too. It's very addicting,
It
I
is.
think.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really fun. And Olivia said to me, "Are you really going to wear that?" And I'm like, I think it's funny enough. I think I might, because it becomes just sort of a colorful thing, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I haven't blocked mine or anything. And somehow I ended up with 14 stitches more than I planned on. But, hey, I must have done an increase and just kept going, you know?
Yeah.
So it is. It's just going to be a cozy sweater. So,
It's gonna be great. I can't wait to see it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
great.
So,
All right. So we covered steek panels. We covered going back and forth if you're doing that. We covered V-neck shaping. Everything else we're going to dig into next week. If you are doing a crew neck shaping, or if you're doing as written the boat neck, we'll talk about all of that next week. So the goals for this week are to finish your color work, yoke depths. And again, I said this at the beginning, if that feels like a lot, I totally get it. I just had to sneak in the next class, the next information before I go on vacation. I didn't want everybody to have to wait until I got back. We got a deadline. We got a deadline on this. So even if you're not quite there, we'll have the recording. We'll be able to talk through it and you'll be able to get it done that way. All right. That's the goal. All right. I'm going to have mine done because I'm insane. So we'll be able to cut open our steeks. We'll be able to do the short rows and the ribbing. We'll be able to see everything come together next week. It's going to be a big class, but it's going to be great. All right. All right. Anybody who's left, anybody have any questions about what's going on with their sweaters? Feeling good about it? Well, good. Well, good. All right. Well, keep knitting like the wind. Keep sharing your beautiful sweaters. Keep me posted. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you next week. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.